William and Mary, it was called a revolution because James was replaced by his daughter Mary and her Dutch husband William of Orange. So they didn't like him anymore. And they didn't really even have a battle. There was one battle in Ireland, but he fled to France. But if you're in a social contract, William comes in as an invited monarch with limited authority. Parliament holds the authority to create the laws. William and Mary are just going to be the executive. So it's a limited monarchy. So unlike Hobbes, who argues for an absolute monarch, because that's the best kind of peace and prosperity the community will have, is the monarch will want the best interests for the community. So he is the state, basically, right? Made up of all those little people, right? But for William, you have a limited monarch where the people have rights, and the rights are, you can't take them away unless they deserve it. So you have to have agreements on how the rights are lost, right? You have to have legal reasons for getting rid of somebody's life. You know, they have to have been, tried for it and punished, etc. So you end up with the belief that you have certain rights that are inalienable. As British citizens in America, Thomas Jefferson believes in those rights. But notice that they're not inalienable in the sense that you can't be killed or punished or lose your property. It's just that it has to be structured according to law, how that happens, right? So if you hear we're equal, they usually add can you say that? Add the phrase under the law, right? So there's legal things that have to be followed. But so Jefferson, prior to the Declaration of Independence, as a member of Virginia, a citizen of Virginia, writes some laws for Virginia, and one of them is the separation of church and state. And the reason for it is the church was the Church of England, and in order to be an office holder in Virginia, you had to be an upright, standing member of the Church of England. Jefferson is a Unitarian. So he writes a law and gets it passed that you can't require office holders to be members of a particular religion. So you end up with the beginnings of this idea of a separation of church and state. And this is, of course, based on his understanding of John Locke, and John Locke is understanding Spinoza. So you see where that's coming from, right? See the chain of thinking here. And Locke is a materialist. So John Locke, materialism. And this leads to the quiz question today. What do you think of his materialism? And what on earth was he as a materialist? Basically, following Hobbes, everything is made up of matter. Right? and everything is made up of small particles named atoms. So we have atoms. And atoms were hard little things, like Democritus thought, that are impenetrable and so on. So you can't change atoms. What creates bigger things is atoms in combination. So atoms are uncuttable, atom, uncuttable, and a whole bunch of them together, probably all different shapes, cohere into material things, and you end up then with this clock-like mechanism that Descartes. Remember the clock in the room where they, in the movie, where Mind Walk, where they're standing. Look at this clock. Everything is like a clock made out of matter. Now the problem is, God created everything. If you're Orthodox, remember there's a separation. You can't join with pantheism, and that doesn't work. So you have to still separate God outside of everything else. But God made everything else, and He made it out of matter. And as a result, matter is, like Galileo says, all moving, and the movements won't stop unless there's other matter that's going to block it and so on. Our bodies are made out of matter and are attracted to some things and avoiding other things. And at the same time, our minds are completely made up of matter that are all these particles entering into our brain and making us do things and want things and so on. And as a result, the whole universe is essentially created at once at the beginning of time by God, and like a clock, put into motion. So it's just ticking. And it's actually an insult to God to think that every once in a while He has to come in and reset the clock. That sounds like, well, God wasn't a very good clockmaker if He has to come in and fix it all the time. So instead you get the idea that the universe is basically functioning completely on its own from the very beginning of time, because God made it and it's perfect, right? Well, if that's the case, and I want to change something, instead of there being snow, I want no snow. Please, God, no snow. It didn't work. Shoot. Well, actually, I'm just being dumb thinking that God is actually going to be concerned with the snow falling right now. That's been set in progress from the very beginning of time. The dinosaurs, dying and, all that. Well, they didn't have them yet. They didn't have dinosaurs yet. But you get the idea. Everything is all set. And if you're going to believe God just started everything and you can't actually interact with Him, instead of being a theist, you're now a deist. What's the difference? A theist is someone that believes there's God and you can interact with God and ask God for favors and learn to do things and learn lessons from God and so on. If you're a deist, you believe that there was a God that created the universe, but that was it. There's nothing left for us to interact with God. We learn nature, study nature, so that you don't jump off cliffs thinking God will protect you on the way down. So the problem, of course, is do you accept Locke's materialism? Because if so, that kind of takes you out of the idea that you can interact with God and that God is even concerned about you. Really. And Jefferson, by the way, was an American deist.
So, could they pray if they didn't believe that God didn't interact with them?
You can certainly pray, but if you do pray, what you're thinking is that the act of prayer helps me, doesn't it? Calms me down.
Yeah.
I'll be more relaxed. Does that mean that some all-powerful being is going to come to my assistance? Or angels going to come in and protect me, keep me from catching COVID? No. Because God just started the universe off. He's the prime mover, like Aristotle, right?
And then
Matt,
also,
right?
Reese.
Reese.
Does this also make like miracles? That's not something that's a part of.
No such thing.
Yeah. Okay.
So God, like, it's like starting a track, you start a track, and just like let it play, and like never interfere again. Huh.
Probably not huge.
Because everything is made out of physical matter, and God doesn't. You don't have plays ending with a Deus ex machina.
Yeah.
God from the machine. You know, everything is a machine, so there's no God outside of the machine that comes in and says, and you guys will fall in love, and the show ends happily. Yay, we're all happy. I won't kill them, that's a literary trope, that
Yeah.
God,
Comes down and
Comes
saves at the
down
last moment or
and
something.
saves the whole show at the last minute.
Yeah.
No one was expecting it, but there it is. Fun,
Yeah.
good stuff. Trying to throw a lot of stuff in and be interesting at the same time.
All would hopefully